There is a miracle that people talk about every day, yet almost no one truly sees it. It is not loud. It does not shake the ground. It does not stop time or break the laws of nature in a way the eyes can easily notice. And that is exactly why it is missed. Most people are trained to look for miracles in dramatic moments, in sudden healings, in visible signs that leave no room for doubt. But what if that idea is incomplete? What if the greatest miracle is not the one that shocks the world, but the one that quietly transforms a single life from the inside out? This changes everything because it means the most powerful work is not happening around us, but within us, and many walk past it every day without even realizing what they are looking at. There is a deep assumption that miracles must be extraordinary in appearance to be real, that they must be rare, sudden, and impossible to ignore. But this belief hides something far greater. It blinds people to a miracle that does not fade, does not depend on circumstances, and does not disappear after a moment. A miracle that continues, grows, and reshapes a person over time. The kind of miracle that does not just fix a situation, but changes the entire direction of a life. And here is where things become unsettling. Because if this is true, then many have been searching in the wrong place all along. They have been waiting for signs while missing the transformation already happening in front of them, or even within them. There is a reason this miracle is overlooked. It does not demand attention. It does not force belief. It works quietly, steadily, and deeply. It takes what is broken and begins to rebuild it piece by piece. It replaces what is empty with something meaningful. It shifts desires, thoughts, and choices in ways that are almost invisible at first, but undeniable over time. This kind of change cannot be faked forever. It reveals itself slowly, like light breaking through darkness, not in a flash, but in a steady and unstoppable way. And yet, because it is not instant, many dismiss it. Because it is not dramatic, many ignore it. Because it is not loud, many fail to recognize it as a miracle at all. This video is going to uncover that hidden truth. It will break down why this miracle is so often misunderstood, why it is rarely talked about in its full depth, and why it might be the most important reality a person can ever come to understand. You will see how the definition of a miracle has been shaped in a way that causes people to overlook something far greater. You will also discover how this miracle works, what it actually changes, and why it carries more power than any visible sign. There are details that are often left out, ideas that are rarely explained clearly, and connections that many never take the time to see. All of that will be revealed step by step. As this unfolds, a different perspective will begin to form. One that shifts the focus from external events to internal transformation. One that shows that the greatest evidence of something real is not always what can be seen with the eyes, but what can be felt, lived, and experienced over time. This is where things start to become personal, because this is not just information. It is something that directly connects to real life, to real struggles, and to real change. And once this is understood, it becomes impossible to look at the idea of miracles the same way again. Stay with this all the way through, because the most important part is not at the beginning but at the end. That is where everything connects. That is where the full picture becomes clear. Missing that part means missing the point entirely. What starts as a simple question will lead to a deeper realization, one that has the power to completely change how this topic is seen and understood. And by the time this is over, the most overlooked miracle may not feel overlooked anymore. Welcome to the channel. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe and be part of a space where deep truths are explored in a simple and clear way. There is much more ahead, and you do not want to miss what comes next. Most people grow up with a very clear picture of what a miracle looks like. It is something sudden, something powerful, something that interrupts the normal flow of life in a way that cannot be ignored. A person is sick, and then suddenly they are healed. A situation is impossible, and then somehow it turns around overnight. A moment filled with fear becomes a moment filled with awe. These are the kinds of stories that stay in people's minds. These are the moments that are shared again and again because they are easy to recognize, easy to describe, and easy to believe as something extraordinary. And because of this, a quiet expectation begins to form in the heart, a belief that if a miracle is real, it must look like this, it must be visible, it must be dramatic, it must stand out so clearly that no one can question it. This expectation slowly shapes the way people think. It becomes the standard. So when someone hears the word miracle, the mind immediately goes to something external, something that can be seen with the eyes or proven in a moment. It creates a pattern where people start waiting for something big to happen, waiting for a clear sign, waiting for a moment that changes everything instantly, and without even realizing it, they begin to measure their faith, their life, and even their hope based on whether or not they see these kinds of moments. If nothing dramatic happens, it feels like nothing is happening at all. This is where a quiet tension begins to grow. Because life does not always move in dramatic ways. Most days are ordinary. Most changes are slow. Most struggles are not solved overnight. And yet, deep inside, there is still that expectation that something big should happen, that something visible should appear. And when it does not, it can lead to confusion, it can lead to doubt, it can even lead to the feeling that something is missing, that maybe the miracle has not come yet, that maybe it is still far away. So people continue to search, they look for signs, they look for moments that stand out. They focus on what they can see, what they can measure, what they can prove in a short amount of time. And in doing so, something important begins to slip past them, something that does not fit into that definition, something that does not shout for attention, something that does not happen in a single moment but unfolds over time. And because it does not match the expectation, it is often ignored, even when it is right there. This is the hidden problem. The focus becomes so strong on visible miracles that the deeper transformation is overlooked. The attention stays on the outside, while the inside is quietly changing without recognition. It is like watching the surface of the water and missing the movement happening underneath. It is like waiting for a loud sound while ignoring a steady voice speaking softly. The search itself becomes a distraction, not because miracles are not real, but because the definition has become too narrow. And this leads to a powerful question that many never stop to ask. What if the greatest miracle is not the one that appears suddenly, but the one that develops slowly? What if the most important change is not the one that shocks the world, but the one that reshapes a single life from within? What if the very thing people are waiting for is already happening, but in a way they have not been trained to notice? This question changes the direction of everything because it challenges the foundation of how miracles are understood. There is a shift that begins here, a movement away from the idea that a miracle must be loud, and toward the understanding that a miracle can be quiet and still be powerful, a realization that the greatest work is not always external, but often internal. And at the center of this shift is a truth that is both simple and profound. Salvation itself is the miracle, not just as a concept but as a living reality that unfolds in a person's life. This is where things become deeper, because salvation is not just a single moment, it is not just a decision or a statement, it is a transformation. It is the process of becoming something new. A heart that once carried certain desires begins to change. Thoughts that once followed a certain pattern begin to shift. Choices that once felt natural begin to feel different. This is not forced. It is not artificial. It happens from within, in a way that cannot be easily explained, but can be clearly experienced over time. A person who once held on to anger begins to move toward forgiveness. A person who once felt empty begins to find meaning in places they never expected. A person who once felt lost begins to sense direction and purpose. These changes do not always happen overnight. They do not always come with a dramatic moment that marks the exact beginning, but they are real, and they continue, and they shape everything. This kind of transformation creates a new identity, not in name but in nature. The way a person sees themselves begins to change. The way they respond to life begins to change. The way they understand right and wrong becomes clearer. It is like a quiet rebuilding from the inside out, a foundation that is being strengthened without drawing attention to itself, and because it is not loud, it is often not recognized as a miracle, even though it carries more weight than any visible sign. There is also a new direction that begins to form. Life no longer feels like random movement. There is a sense of purpose that starts to grow. Decisions begin to align with something deeper. The focus shifts from short-term satisfaction to something more lasting. This does not mean life becomes easy. It does not mean struggles disappear. But it does mean that the way those struggles are faced begins to change. There is strength where there was once weakness. There is clarity where there was once confusion. And yet this remains overlooked. Not because it is not important, but because it does not match the expected image of a miracle. It is not instant. It does not create a single moment that can be easily pointed to and shared. It happens internally, where no one else can fully see it. It grows over time, slowly, steadily, without rushing. And in a world that values speed and visibility, this kind of change can feel easy to ignore. People often miss it because they are looking for something else. They are waiting for a moment that feels bigger, louder, clearer. They are expecting a sign that removes all doubt in an instant. But the deeper work does not function that way. It builds, it develops, it reveals itself through consistency rather than sudden impact. And because of this, it requires a different kind of attention, a willingness to notice small changes, a willingness to recognize progress that is not dramatic but meaningful. The quiet miracles are often the deepest ones. They reach places that visible moments cannot reach. They change the core, not just the surface. They last not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. And once this is understood, it becomes clear that something powerful has been happening all along, even if it was not recognized at first. This leads to a deeper look at what is actually changing. Because the transformation is not just general or vague, it is specific, it is real. A person who once carried guilt begins to experience peace, not because the past disappears, but because the weight of it begins to lift. There is a sense of release that cannot be fully explained, but can be deeply felt. It is like a burden being slowly removed, allowing the heart to breathe again. A person who once felt empty begins to discover purpose, not in a sudden moment, but through a growing awareness that life has meaning beyond what was previously understood. Daily actions begin to feel more significant. Small moments begin to carry more value. There is a sense that life is moving in a direction, even if that direction is still unfolding. A person who once felt lost begins to feel found, not in a physical sense, but in an internal way. There is clarity where there was once confusion. There is stability where there was once uncertainty. It is like moving from a place of wandering to a place of belonging. And this shift affects everything. It changes how decisions are made. It changes how challenges are faced. It changes how life is experienced as a whole. These changes can be compared to simple things that are easy to understand, like a seed growing into a tree. It does not happen in a single moment. It takes time. It requires patience. But over time, the change becomes undeniable, or like the slow rise of the sun. It does not appear instantly at full brightness. It gradually fills the sky with light, changing everything it touches. In the same way, this transformation begins quietly but grows into something powerful. This brings everything to a personal level, because this is not just about ideas or explanations. It is about real life. It is about real change that can be seen when a person takes the time to reflect, and this reflection leads to important questions. not loud questions but honest ones. Has there been change over time? Have certain desires shifted? Have certain patterns been replaced with something different? It may not be obvious at first. It may require looking back, comparing who someone was before with who they are now. It may require noticing small details that were once ignored. But when this reflection is done honestly, something begins to appear. A pattern of change, a direction of growth, a transformation that did not happen all at once, but has been happening consistently. And in that realization, the overlooked begins to become visible, not in the way people expected, but in a way that is deeper and more lasting. The search for something dramatic begins to fade, replaced by an awareness of something steady. The focus shifts from what can be seen in a moment to what can be experienced over time. And in that shift, a different understanding of miracles begins to take shape, one that is not limited by appearance but defined by impact. Everything comes down to this one truth that is easy to miss but impossible to ignore once it is understood. The greatest miracle is not the one that happens around you, it is the one that happens within you. It is not always loud, it does not always come in a single moment, it does not always look the way people expect, but it changes everything in a way that nothing else can. It reshapes the heart, it redirects the mind, it gives meaning where there was once confusion, it brings peace where there was once weight. And it does all of this quietly, steadily, and deeply. What once felt normal begins to feel different. What once had control begins to lose its power. The things that once defined a person no longer hold the same place. And in their place, something new begins to grow. Something stronger, something clearer, something that cannot be easily shaken. This is not temporary. This is not surface level. This is a transformation that reaches the core of who a person is, and that is why it matters more than anything else. Many spend their lives waiting for something dramatic, something visible, something that proves everything in a single moment. But all along, the real miracle may have been unfolding in a way that did not demand attention, yet carried more power than anything else they were looking for. It is not about what can be seen for a second. It is about what continues for a lifetime. It is not about a moment that fades, it is about a change that stays. And once this is seen clearly, the way life is understood begins to shift completely. Take a moment and look within, not quickly but honestly. Notice the changes that have taken place over time. Notice the thoughts that are no longer the same. Notice the desires that have shifted. Notice the strength that was not there before. These are not small things. These are not random changes. These are signs of something deeper at work, something real, something that deserves to be recognized for what it truly is. If this perspective has opened your eyes in any way, then do not keep it to yourself. There are many who are still searching, still waiting, still missing what is right in front of them. Share this message so it can reach them too. And if you want more content like this that helps you see deeper and understand more clearly, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with others. There is much more to explore, and the next insight might be the one that changes everything.